The royal fallout from Harry's tell-all autobiography is worse than expected. It comes just weeks after the release of the couple's sensational Netflix series, watched by millions around the world. Harry's main theme once again was what he claims was the constant briefings from members of his family against him and Meghan.
It's a dirty game. You know, there's leaking, but there's also planting of stories. So if the comms team want to be able to remove a negative story about their principal, they will trade and give you something about someone else's principal. So the officers end up working against each other.
I realized that I wasn't just being thrown to the wolves, I was being fed to the wolves.
I've been a royal correspondent for about 10 years now, and I can categorically say no one at the palace has ever called me and given me a salacious story about anyone. More's the pity, because, you know, that would be quite interesting. As a journalist, stories don't just come from the palace. That said, you do go to them and people will brief you on whether something is accurate or not accurate occasionally. More often than not, the palace just won't comment. But I don't think there has been an orchestrated campaign, at least not from my perspective. And I think it's important to recognise that there's a difference between having cordial relations with the press, having a good working relationship with the press, who are there after all to publicise the work that the royal family are doing and engender goodwill towards them in many ways, and actually orchestrating, leaking, planting deliberately. Now, I would like to hear more of the specific examples that he's referring to. We're not hearing exactly who said what to who and when.
But I really do think he's completely confused. I mean, if you look at any other relationship between the state and journalists, be it within politics or the health service, then there has to be relationships between press officers and the journalists who cover that relevant beat. But I think that Harry really bogged himself down with this context that there was always briefing against him, that people were actively trying to smear him and Meghan throughout the whole time that they were within the royal family, is just is absolutely wrong.
Harry maintains he tried to do things the right way, telling America's 60 Minutes there would be no point in renouncing him and Meghan's Duke and Duchess titles, and that ultimately he had been betrayed by his own family.
And every single time I've tried to do it privately, there have been briefings and leakings and planting of stories against me and my wife. You know, the family motto is never complain, never explain, but it's just a motto, and it doesn't really hold.
There's a lot of complaining and a lot of explaining.
Endless.
Private being done through leaks.
Through leaks.
Well, he's got no proof of that, so I wouldn't believe a word of it. I mean, you can tell Prince William is a very honourable, dignified man. If you think he's looked after Harry all his life, he's protected him and cared for him. And if you think that that's what he's going to do, then you're completely wrong.
They're very angry about the negative press. They don't understand why it turned on them. And they continue to delude themselves that if they just set the record straight, people are going to love them again. That's not how it works. The only way to make the people love you again is to shut up.
If they think the media are bad now, if they think the paparazzi are bad now, goodness, they should have been around 25, 30 years ago. That was the time when you woke up and you had no idea what was going to come at you. Now they've got the press pretty well corralled.
To say the bits he said about the media, about how he feels that it's not fair on his family, but yet he needs the media. They all use the media because they want to get their work out, they want to get their charity work, they want to get the news out there. So you've kind of got to make up your mind which way it is.